Let's take a look at the iDaafa construct. iDaafa means addition, and the construct implies adding nouns together to depict relationship, possession, or belonging. The English transcription here is using the capital D to denote the letter dod. It's not a fancy new Apple product called the iDaafa. You can also represent the dod with a lowercase d with a dot under it, but that typically requires special fonts and keyboards. Some people just use a lowercase d without a dot. The iDaafa structure works kind of like making a compound word in English. You're adding two nouns together to present one new idea. This idea represents the something of something. The of connection is key to the iDaafa. Think of taking the word university, Jamia, and Utah, to get the University of Utah, Jamiatu, Utah. The iDaafa construct can be used to represent three different concepts in English. First, the of structure that we talked about, the University of Utah, Jamiatu, Utah. Can you say it? Jamiatu, Utah. 2. Possession, such as Sally's book, Kitabu, Sally. You say it. Kitabu, Sally. And third, compound nouns such as classroom, Ghurfatu al-Sofi. Try it. Ghurfatu al-Sofi. Generally speaking, however, the iDaafa is translated as the blank of blank, which makes sense when we think of things like the University of Utah or the head of the class, but it gets a little clunky when we try to translate it as the book of Sally or the room of the class. So you can translate more colloquially once you get more comfortable with the language. But for now, to help you learn the concept of the construct, you should stick with the more literal translation. Have you noticed any patterns to the construct? The first word is the focus of the construct, the main idea. Looking at our previous examples, we see a university, Jamia, a book, kitab, and a room, ghurfa, which we then find out are the University of Utah, Jamiatu Utah, Sally's book, Kitabu Sally, and the classroom, Ghurfatu al-Sofi. One of the telltale signs that you're dealing with an iDaafa rather than an adjective noun phrase is that typically the first word is definite and the second is indefinite. Look at classroom. Ghurfatu al-Sofi. This literally translates to the room of the class. The al before Sofe tells us that it is the class, and Sally and Utah are both definite because they're proper nouns, so they don't need an al. Did you notice that I said the room of the class, even though there is no al before ghurfa? This is because although the first noun tells us the main idea, the definiteness of the second noun rubs off onto the first, so they both become one definite clause or idea. Sahi? You may be thinking that an indefinite noun followed by a definite noun automatically means you've got an iDaafa, and you do. But there can also be indefinite iDaafa constructs. In this case, both nouns are indefinite. Think about Ghurfatu al-Sofi, the classroom, versus Ghurfatu Safin, a classroom. One is a compound word referring to a specific classroom or the room of the class, Ghurfatu al-Sofi, while the other is a general classroom or a room of a class, Ghurfatu Safin. One other thing you may have noticed is the endings of the word. When you make class indefinite, you need to put a tanween on the end, making a safa into safin. And since the second word of an iDaafa always ends in a kesra, it gets the kesra tanween. The first word of an iDaafa always ends in a dhamma, and the tar marbuta will be pronounced as a ta, making it ghurfatu instead of just ghurfa. Take a minute and think of words you know. Can you come up with some iDaafa constructs?